Well, today we begin a new series on the 12 powers, and we're using the book by Paul Hasselbeck, which he titled PowerUp on Your Accelerated Abilities. The 12 powers were the brainchild of Charles Fillmore. As you know, he was the master of metaphysical interpretation of the Bible. And Jesus in the Bible always represents the Christ of your being, your higher self, your true self. So if Jesus had 12 disciples, what do the disciples represent? So he said they represent your 12 powers. Just as the disciples helped Jesus to do his work, your powers help you in your everyday life in your expression of the Christ of your being. And he gave a location in the body for each of the 12 powers. In the original book, which, he had this black and white illustration of where the powers were located. And then since then, a number of, more appealing representations have been done. This one is for children. And the cover of the book is another example of locating the 12 powers. Of course, when we talk about anything spiritual, we know that we're talking about what we call Christ consciousness, as opposed to sense consciousness. The sense consciousness is the consciousness that we share with any other mammal. And of course, there's more than 5 senses. There's the sense of balance. But we all, as little kids, we were all about the sense consciousness. But as we mature, we become aware that there is another level of consciousness. And in unity, we call that Christ consciousness. Christ is the Greek word for anointed, as in anointed with oil. And who was the anointed? The king. We all probably saw on TV King Charles being anointed. Well, we didn't see it. They put up a screen. But the Archbishop of Canterbury, trust me, behind that screen, was anointing his hands, his forehead, and his heart with the holy oil. So the Christ of your being is the king, the ruler of your spiritual self, your true self. Over time, people have given colors to the 12 powers. People always do this, just like the chakras originally didn't have any colors. But you give people a list of things, and they're going to assign colors to them. So faith today is dark blue, and then light blue is imagination. So faith should be a dark, even a navy blue. And this business of wearing the color to church on that we're studying, that's just for fun, and we like to do it. So, as a matter of fact, when somebody talks to me about the series I did, that's the only thing they mention. Let's do the 12 powers and wear the colors again. Okay, we'll wear the colors again. Now, these 12 powers are not exclusively spiritual powers. You all know what all these things are, and they are words and experiences that we've all had all our lives. So there can be a very low level of love. I thought this was a wonderful picture of love of money. And, or there can be the very highest level of love, which is unconditional self-giving. Or order. Order can be a neurotic compulsive We all either know or either claim to be OCD. Or order can represent functionality and beauty combined to make our lives better. So the 12 powers all radiate from the Christ and are the ways that the Christ of your being, the great I am, the way that that expresses on a spiritual level. So faith is located right smack dab in the center of the brain. And Charles Fillmore says it coincides with the pineal gland. It's very interesting to me that he chose this because not only in the ancient Indian tradition is the third eye located in the center of the head, but the Egyptians honored the eye of Horus, and I don't think, I could be wrong, I don't think the Egyptians ever sliced a brain down the center and noticed that the pineal gland, when you slice the brain that way, looked like the eye of Horus. But it has been noted, isn't it interesting, that the eye of Horus and the cross-section of the brain that includes the pineal gland look so much alike. Now, in modern day, the scientists have discovered that the pineal gland produces DMT, I think I can pronounce this, dimethyltryptamine. I did it. And this particular hormone, they say, is responsible for mystical experiences. Additionally, the pineal gland regulates other glands that regulates all of your hormones. So it's kind of like the master gland. And all of this, Charles Fillmore didn't know. He had no way of knowing about DMT. And it's just, I think that it came to him the same way it came to the Hindu mystics, 4,000 years ago, that when we are talking about higher consciousness, we are that it is located in the center of the brain. So this is why faith is considered the master power, because if you don't have faith, then the other powers are going to remain at the level of sense consciousness. And I'm going to go into that a little bit now. Your consciousness is of three types. Your everyday consciousness, your superconsciousness, and your subconsciousness. Now, we all know about subconsciousness, that's sleep or trance, and it's also like the creative zone. People get in the zone when they're playing their instrument or writing their music or sculpting, or if you do anything artistic, you know what we're talking about being in the zone. Well, that comes from the subconscious. Then we know that consciousness is being awake, and that's where we do our learning, perceiving, and deciding. And then the superconsciousness is Christ consciousness or God consciousness or the cosmic mind, different terms for it, your divine self. Now, the point I want to make is that it is a decision to be conscious or to let yourself go into subconsciousness. You decide to go to bed or you decide to take a nap or you decide that you're just going to sleep through my lesson. You decide. It's a choice. In the morning, when that alarm goes off, you can either hit the snooze button and sleep a little bit more, or you can just take the alarm clock and throw it against the wall and decide you're going to sleep as long as you want. Of course, it's not always a conscious decision. We all know what it's like to fall asleep when you didn't want to fall asleep. Children do a lot of that. They can't help themselves. And also, you may decide to sleep and not be able to. But basically, it is a choice. Now, the same is true when we talk about the superconscious versus the conscious. It is a choice. You operate on the superconscious level, you operate from the spiritual perspective, or you operate from just purely sense consciousness. And I have a couple of examples of that. And of course, I know that you're not all science fiction fans. Please bear with me with this just one science fiction example. In Star Wars, we have Anakin, who was a Jedi, but he turned bad and he went over to the dark side. And then we have a young girl named Rey. And Rey was an orphan who didn't realize that her parents were Jedi and that the Force was strong in her and she was destined to be a Jedi. And she had just had one of the lightsabers that the Jedis use fall into her hands. She didn't even know, hadn't been trained. She knew kind of about the Force, but she had no idea how to use it. And she knew that, oh, gee, I guess I'm a Jedi, or at least I'm Jedi material. But Anakin saw her as a threat and decided to kill her. So here you see they're having this duel. He has two lightsabers, and plus he's proficient. So it comes to the point where he has overpowered her, and she's just barely holding him off with her lightsaber, and he is about to just literally push her off of a cliff. And he says to her, "Don't imagine that the Force will save you." And she says, "Oh yeah, the Force." "Oh, okay." And she closes her eyes. She's pushing him away, trying not to be pushed off the cliff. She closes her eyes. She connects to the Force, and she's able to save herself, and she escapes. Just as an example, that being in a state of superconsciousness is a choice. And here's a totally different example, but this one is real. Eric Butterworth tells a story about one of his children, his little boy, had an accident and needed to go to the emergency room. So he takes his little boy to the emergency room, and the doctors take him to the treatment area, and they're doing their ER thing, and the kid is hysterical. Eric, being a metaphysician, begins to pray, and he just can't do it. The child is screaming, and he can't concentrate. So he actually steps outside of the hospital so that he can't hear his son, and he's able to calm himself, connect, and pray for his son. And of course, when he goes back into the hospital, there's no more screaming, and the treatments were successful. Just as an example, he made the choice, and he did what he had to do in order to achieve superconscious level. And finally, of course, many examples in the gospel of Jesus withdrew from the crowds and withdrew even from his disciples in order to have the peace that is necessary to establish a higher consciousness. Now, sometimes, just like in the Eric Butterworth example, you just have some trouble because you're upset. You know, when you're upset, it's hard to make a rational decision of any kind. So what you can do is you can call Silent Unity, and there's always somebody there who will answer the phone and pray with you. And if you've ever called Silent Unity, you know that it is a beautiful experience. So I have this phone number on my speed dial, so that if I get upset and I'm not able to achieve that inner peace that is necessary for prayer, I can call and get help. And I see Elizabeth is putting it on her speed dial. Anyone else who wants to put this on their speed dial right now, I'll hold it there for just a minute. So superconsciousness is the higher consciousness, which is located in the head. The subconscious is located in the solar plexus. The consciousness is located in the face. So, but you're not going to make this choice if you don't believe in anything spiritual. You know, the atheist is not going to make this choice. And the other person who is not going to make this choice is the person who thinks that they can't, that they have to have an intermediary of some kind. I remember as a child in catechism I was taught, outside the church there is no salvation. And there are any number of churches that teach this. It's our way or the highway. And you've got to have a church in order to connect to God. But of course, we know that Jesus taught the kingdom of heaven is where? Oh, within you. So you don't have to reach, you just have to become aware. So now I have all these notes which I have ignored. Let's see where I am. So, faith is necessary to activate the other powers. And how do we do that? Well, prayer, of course. And we know that in prayer we are directly connected to the mind and heart of God. Is one of our 5 basic principles. And that's why in unity we say, let's be still, or we say, let's get centered. In some traditional churches, when they pray, everybody bows their head. Well, that's because God is up there and we're the servants down here. Whereas in New Thought churches, when they say, oh, this is our prayer time, we say, let's get centered, you know, people look like it's the opposite. They relax and they don't look down because they're not bowing, because there is no separation between the God within and the person. Another thing is it's an intention. You have to intend to operate on the superconscious level. You have to intend to be using the 12 powers as they radiate from the Christ within. And this is why we say, let God be God in me, or thy will be done. Of course, when you form the intention to use any of your 12 powers, or you can use more than one together, you are going to be doing it. You certainly aren't going to do it in order to be a better thief. You aren't going to do it in order to drive effectively 100 miles an hour down a crowded street. It has to be in harmony, in union with the divine will. And as H. Emily Cady said, if you're doing God's will, remember, God cannot fail. And of course, Jesus told us, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you will receive it and it will be yours. Jesus talked about faith and belief a lot, all the time. In A Course in Miracles, there's a beautiful quote that says, "Miracles are natural. When they do not occur, something has gone wrong." And what has usually gone wrong is we are lacking in faith. Faith is something like anything else. It has to grow. You start with a little bit of faith and you work at it. You work at it every day, just like learning to play the piano or learning to play pickleball. Whatever you're going to learn, you have to practice it. So your faith grows out of hope. So one practice that I am recommending to you is for the following week, you can get the book, read the book on the first chapter on faith, but kind of as a fun thing, but also to sort of exercise your faith muscles and remind yourself, as you go through this week, every time you see something that is blue, say the affirmation, "Faith blesses my day and guides me on my way." Faith blesses my day. Nice little children's poem. Faith blesses my day and guides me on my way. So I circled some things in here that were dark blue. Not light blue, that's another power. Not teal, not unity blue, not sky blue, dark blue. Just like, let's see, I have dark blue in here. And who else is wearing? I see dark blue there, dark blue. Okay.
I didn't even know.
Well, Spirit guided you. Okay, and so here's the affirmation. Faith blesses my day and paves my way. So I have a little article here that I want to share with you by Winifred Wilkinson Hausman from her book, Your God-Given Potential. Of all the faculties, the one Jesus spoke of most frequently was faith. Have faith. Believe. Trust. Over and over, Jesus emphasized this first of our powers, and in one of his disciples, we watch the faculty develop. Faith does not come all at once with a mighty thud. It must grow. It must be encouraged. It must be invited and then made welcome. As Simon, the crude fisherman, became Peter, the dedicated apostle, so the ability to trust God must grow in our lives. Faith has been defined in many ways. The writer of Hebrews referred to it as the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Understood in this light, faith is that quality in us which enables us to look past appearances of lack, limitation, or difficulty, to take hold of the divine idea and believe in it, even though we do not see any evidence of it except in our minds. Through faith, we know with an inner knowing the truth that has not yet expressed itself in our manifest world. We determine the direction of our faith, and as we do, we determine the results that we will have in our lives. The location of the faith center is significant. It is in the center of the head, between the ears and the eyes. When we put our faith in that which we see with our eyes or hear with our ears, we are using the faculty in a limited way, and the results will come accordingly. However, we can center the faculty of faith on our inner vision and our inner hearing, developing this faculty through prayer to know the potential God has given us. And when we do, our results will express the higher realization of our spiritual nature. At its highest level, faith is directed by our spiritual nature, from the Christ center at the crown of the head. We determine the direction of our faith, and as we do, we determine the results that we will have in our lives. In developing the quality of faith, we have to start as Peter did, by being receptive to truth and letting truth grow in us until we can feel our absolute oneness with the quality of faith. Feel in such a way that we no longer think in terms of having faith, but express it automatically, as Jesus did. Believe, trust, and allow your faith to grow. And another New Thought writer, Reverend Bronte Colbert, hope I'm saying that right. Today I honor my faculty of faith. Whether it is as small as a mustard seed or as large as a mountain, faith is the energy that carries me forward. It opens my heart to knowing that I am worthy of all good things, including more love. When events around me seem overwhelming, when worry and doubt darken the landscape of my mind, I call forth faith. In prayer, I affirm that faith will see me through. In meditation, I picture a reservoir of faith that I easily draw from. Faith fills me with trust and confidence. It lightens my load. Faith expands my awareness to recognize the presence of Spirit in every person, place, and circumstance. It reminds me to trust in my abilities and believe in myself, knowing I am ever supported by the divine. Faith lifts up my thoughts and words to create a brighter picture. It reminds me to be open to divine guidance, intuitive knowing, and spiritual nudges. It aids me in knowing that from a divine perspective, all is truly well. And so I affirm, walking in faith, my steps are sure, divine guidance is clear, and my path is illuminated. So we're going to end this lesson with a very short meditation on faith. So I encourage you to just close your eyes and let these words be the words of your heart. We are still and we center ourselves with a slow, deep inhale and a complete cleansing exhale. Then, breathing normally, focus your attention on the crown of the head, the Christ center, and mentally affirm, the Christ of God is quickened in me. The Christ of God is quickened in me. Now move your attention to the center of your forehead, which represents the conscious level of mind. Realize that you are consciously aware that the Christ of God is being quickened in you, and mentally affirm, I am aware that the Christ of God is quickened in me. I am aware that the Christ of God is quickened in me. Now move your attention to the solar plexus, located just above the belly button. This represents the subconscious level of mind. In order to accept your awareness that the Christ of God is being quickened in you at the deepest level of your being, mentally affirm, I am grateful that the Christ of God is being quickened in me. I am grateful that the Christ of God is being quickened in me. Gratitude is an emotion, and the subconscious is the seat of your feelings, your emotions. So now let your attention travel to the middle, the center of the head, the face center, and mentally affirm, the Christ in me calls forth my faculty of faith. The Christ in me calls forth my faculty of faith. And as you do this, visualize Jesus speaking the words, according to your faith, be it done unto you. Finally, conclude this meditation by affirming, I am grateful. I am grateful. So when you're ready, open your eyes. And together, our closing affirmation is the affirmation we're going to use every time we see blue this week. And it is, together, faith blesses my day and paves my way.